What is going on, everyone? And welcome to another week of the Mark and Graham podcast. Follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter, follow us on YouTube at Mark and Graham _podcast. We are live here, week 8. Another great episode coming towards you. Mark, let's get a recap of what we did last week.
Yeah, last week was another great episode, week 7. We got going with the NFL ref conversation as the NFL season has opened up. There's been a lot of controversy surrounding the refs. The Zebras are out there making terrible calls from week 1 on to all the way now. We're heading into week 4 of the NFL season. We also talked a little bit of craziest calls we've ever seen all time. We talked about the Saints play from last year that cost them a Super Bowl chance. Then we went into an odd man out of just overall great moments in NFL history. We both got a little sentimental there, looking back at our team's Super Bowl victories, the David Tyree lucky catch, the Philly special. Graham gave a great take on the FIBA, and we talked a little NBA, giving our Final Four picks, and then we closed it out with Sunday's picks. Last week, I made the picks. This week, Graham is going to be back on with Semegram says he's picking the games this week. Looking ahead today's episode, what do we have for us, Graham?
So today we're going to start off with our clown of the day. We are going to do a special odd man out this week. Last week, Mark brought up the 30 for 30 segments that are really in the making right now. And so what we decided to do was take the best stories in sports and rank them to see, what stories right now would make the best 30 for 30s. If you don't know what a 30 for 30 is, it's a short documentary series that ESPN produces that me and Mark follow very actively. And we're just really all about it. And real quick before we start, speaking of crazy calls, Mark, what's up with that chin strap, dude? Come on. Or whatever you got growing on your face. That might be the craziest call so far that I've seen.
Episode 1, it's nothing new.
I had to wait till week 8 to let you know.
Week 7. No, week 8.
No. All right, so we're gonna start off with clown of the day. Mark, who is your clown of the day?
Actually, I've been waiting to have the chance to make this guy my clown of the day since we started this show because I've been leading the group of people that hate this guy and don't believe he's going to be everything that he's hyped up to be in the NFL since he was the number 1 overall pick 2 years ago by the Browns. That is Baker Mayfield. I have not been a fan since his college days, since he acted a fool at Oklahoma. I just don't like his personality, and I don't think he has the intangibles to be a great NFL quarterback. And last year, he proved he convinced me for a little bit that he was going to be the real deal. But so far this season, he's gotten all the weapons he could ask for. They got Odell. They have Jarvis Landry, Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt's coming back. Eventually, they've given him everything that he could ask for. The Browns are currently 1-2. His quarterback rating is 70, which is awful. That's bottom 10 in the NFL, and his touchdown interception ratio is 3 to 5. He has 3 touchdowns, 5 interceptions 3 weeks into the season. He doesn't look all that great.
What if I told you, Mark, that to me, I think this is Jim Dorsey's fault? Who the hell's Freddie Kitchens? I'm going to be honest with you. Out of all the teams that had a head coaching spot opened, this was probably the biggest job in my mind. With all the weapons that the Browns wanted to get, I thought that, the Browns would interview a lot more people. I thought they would interview names like Bruce Arians. I thought they were going to interview, way more guys than they did. And frankly, they said Freddie Kitchens. I was like, who's that? I just think the Browns made a really quick choice with their head coach. I still think the Browns are going to finish over 500. It takes a little bit to, get started with your new team. But I definitely see where you're, saying Baker Mayfield, and he does make college-type decisions, whether that's holding the ball for too long or trying to be, that superhero instead of dumping it off in the flats. I definitely think Baker Mayfield is a little too college-type of a quarterback. But is that all you got about Baker?
Just touching on Freddie Kitchens, like you said, they chose to stay in-house. He was their coordinator last year, and a lot of that decision was because of Baker Mayfield. Baker and Freddie Kitchens loved each other, and when he came in as the interim head coach after Hugh Jackson left, Baker really got behind the guy and was a huge supporter. And like you know how the NFL is, it's all about quarterback coach relationships.
All
So
about
that's kind of why they went that direction. They didn't even interview anybody else. They just went with their interim coach from last year. But you're 100% right. Freddie Kitchens is not going to last long if the only guy who's supporting him is Baker Mayfield and has a bottom 10 quarterback rating in the NFL. He will not last.
But before I go to my Graham of the Day, which actually has to do with this man's old team, as a Giants fan, I really experienced this, firsthand. Not many people are going to understand what I'm saying, but I think the Browns are riding like this Odell high. And when I say Odell high, I mean when that guy's on your team, you think you're unstoppable, and you do everything in your mind to think that because you have Odell, you're the best team ever, and Baker's better because you have Odell. Trust me, us Giants fans did it for 5 years with Eli. We think Eli's got it this year. He's got Odell. It's not like that. And I think Odell Beckham kind of brings that to every team without even like meaning it. So I'm going to switch over to my clown of the day, and that's kicker Matt Gay. I just want to say thank you for making Daniel Jones look like a hero in New York, Matt Gay. Anyone who didn't see the Giants game on Sunday, Giants were down 18. Daniel Jones leads an absolutely amazing comeback. Fun fact, Eli Manning was 0-44 in situations where the Giants were down by 18 points. Daniel Jones on his first opportunity, 1-0. First game, starting on the road. I said it at the end of last week's episode. I said my Graham of the Day is going to be Daniel Jones. He is going to show what he has. Now, I'm getting into a little bit of my next topic, but yeah, my clown of the day goes to Matt Gay. Thank you for missing that 32-yard field goal. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, because now we have the same amount of wins as the Browns. And look who looks stupid now. So I'm going to continue. So last week for Mark and Graham of the Day, me and Mark just happened to make two very, very, very educated guesses, I would say. And we hit. I said Daniel Jones was going to have a stellar opening against the Bucs. I'll get Mark's opinion on that in a minute. But from a Giants fan's perspective, that is how the Giants would have played with Eli, except we would have lost. Because for some reason, Eli can't lead comebacks anymore. Jones led that comeback. And, I read something online that said Daniel Jones went to that huddle and he said, we got to effing score. And, from a 21-year-old rookie quarterback playing in one of the biggest cities in America, I didn't see Carson Wentz doing that when he was a rookie. But I just triggered Mark.
Just led his team bye week, though, in his second year. Best record in the NFL.
So what are your, last feelings on Daniel Jones before we hear your prediction that hit right on the nail last week?
Honestly, I think Daniel Jones, he's gotten a bad rap since the draft. A lot of people were so hype on Dwayne Haskins and mad that the Giants didn't take him and reached on Daniel Jones. But honestly, right now, the Giants are looking pretty smart. Haskins doesn't appear ready at all, and Daniel Jones looks like he is a prototypical quarterback. And not only that, but he's a great fit for the Giants organization. It's not they don't like to go off the beaten path. They want a prototypical pocket quarterback. They've always had in Eli and Phil Simms, and it's just kind of how they go. And it looks like he's going to be an Eli Jr. They're literally the same person. They look identical. It's just one thing that no one's talking about is the fact that Saquon Barkley is now injured for 6 weeks. That's something that, let's be honest, you lost Odell. Your receivers are me. I think me and my roommates could be a better receiving core than what the Giants have right now. When you take Saquon Barkley out of the mix, I just think that that's where you're looking at Daniel Jones had a safety net in Saquon Barkley to dump the ball to every time. Now he has no weapons, and you're going to see some developmental issues in the next couple of weeks when he realizes he has nobody to throw the ball to. What is going to help is Golden Tate is returning from suspension in 1 week. And Golden Tate he's a pro of all pros. He will make the plays. He's not going to drop passes, and he'll definitely help out Daniel Jones, which he needs desperately.
And also about Golden Tate, he came from one of the best, quarterback coach situations you can, coming from, Matt Stafford and Matt Patricia. Um, Golden Tate, correct me if I'm wrong, played for the Seahawks, correct?
Yeah, he was Seahawks, then Lions,
Yeah.
and the Eagles last year.
Yeah. He came from a Pete Carroll and a Russell Westbrook system. He knows what a quarterback is supposed to, he Russell Wilson, yeah. He came from a system where your quarterback is your everything, and Pete Carroll, entrusted Russell Wilson the same way that I'm really hoping Pat Shurmur, entrust Daniel Jones to lead the offense. And onto your prediction, Mark, which I thought was crazy. You might be right. So, tell them what you said.
Well, yeah, last week, I mean, it seems like literally every single week we are talking about this guy, and it just disgusts me because I would hope to never bring up his name again after maybe this episode. But Antonio Brown, last week, I said would never play another season in the NFL after this year, and that very soon it would be his last game. And sure enough, after that episode, he didn't even play another game. Gets cut by the Patriots literally the day after we recorded, and then retires from the NFL on Sunday morning. It doesn't appear that he's ever gonna have another opportunity. I really think one of these sexual harassment charges is going to be true, and I hate to say something without the facts and put something that big on somebody, but we all know Antonio Brown's personality, and I just think that this could be going downhill even further than where he already is. I don't see him playing another game in the NFL. He hurts a team more than he helps them at this point, and it's just sad to see because he was a generational talent that lost his mind. And
Yeah.
he's going back to school now, apparently. I think that above all tells you he's about to get sued out of his mind. He's going to have no money, and he needs to go back to school to make a life for himself.
The thing with Antonio Brown, he's a child. He's selfish. He's really worthless. But again, he is he's taking full advantage of innocent until proven guilty here. He is playing it like nothing happened. Now, again, I'm not the one to say look at everyone and say he did it. But I'm also not the guy that says he didn't do it. Like I said, innocent until proven guilty. Mark hit that right on the head, and I thought he was crazy. And I think a lot of people in Florida are going to be think I'm crazy when I say what I'm about to say. But mark my words, Mark, Jalen Ramsey is going to be an Eagle within the next 3 weeks. It is going to happen. After what happened last night, the Eagles are on the phones, man. The Eagles need help in the backfield. If you're going to look at me and tell me that Jalen Ramsey is not going to go to the Eagles for a hefty bulk, whoever the Eagles send, it's going to be hefty. But I think Jalen Ramsey is worth enough to say he is going to be on that defending Super Bowl champion team and trying to help them make a push to the next Super Bowl.
I don't know. I think there's a fit there positionally. Obviously, the Eagles need help in the secondary, especially after last night. Avonte Maddox goes to the hospital, gets stretchered off. It was a really ugly sight and kind of scary. But the difference is the Eagles are all about locker room chemistry, and they literally build their team around being a family and not having guys that put themselves first. Jalen Ramsey is the exact opposite of all of that. That's why he's getting traded. Nobody wants somebody that is that much of a me person in the locker room. And we saw it earlier at the end of the preseason with Jadeveon Clowney. Everyone was rumoring the Eagles as a Super Bowl favorite. that needs defensive help, needs a pass rusher. Would they go after Clowney? No. We saw that already. The Eagles didn't want to add that type of personality. And now, once again, everybody is kind of highlighting the Eagles' name as the ones who are going to go after Jalen Ramsey. And I'm not so sure. I don't think Doug Peterson and Jim Schwartz are the type of coaching tree that wants a player like Ramsey. I don't think Ramsey is that type of like championship player because he is such a me personality. And he reminds me of a lot of what we saw from Josh Norman when he was on the Panthers. They were very like boisterous, loud, obnoxious cornerbacks that were the best in the league for a year or two and then talk too much and talk their way onto the Redskins. And what have you seen from Norman lately? I just think that you're going to see Jalen Ramsey on a really bad team soon. I think he's going to get traded to somebody like the Bengals or something like that, and you're not really going to hear from him much after that. So I think it's a great fit. I'm going to go with no. I don't think he ends up on the Eagles.
See, the only team that I could really think of that was filled with guys like Jalen Ramsey, honestly, turned out to be one of the best defenses in, this century's history, and that was the, 2013 Legion of Boom. Look at all those guys. Look at Michael Bennett. He's had issues with contracts and GMs. Earl Thomas, he's had issues with contracts and GMs. Richard Sherman, he's had issues with contracts and GMs. Cam Chancellor, he even had his issues. Like, that team was filled with those guys who were all super talented. But I think, like you said, if there's just one guy who tries to draw all the attention to himself, they're just going to anchor that team and sink them down. And I think Josh Norman was the perfect example. But again, there's just something about this Eagles franchise. There's something about Doug Peterson that just the way they adapted to Jordan Howard, I thought was amazing. Jordan Howard had a game last night. I just think that if there's any system to be really welcoming, like you said, it's all about chemistry. There's nothing more I would want than to be greeted by a bear hug from Jason Kelce. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just one of those things that I think it's one of those situations where you need to realize that the NFL is still a business, and anything can happen at any time. And these players get paid to get along. And I think Ramsey, if he's, put in there, he will, make his best fit. And when it comes to, big stories in sports, everything's happening as we go, and you can't really keep up with everything. So, ESPN likes to put out these things called 30 for 30s. And me and Mark figured that there have been so many of these since we were born that are still have yet to be made a movie about because they're still happening. Me and Mark decided to rank our top 5, what we think ESPN would make 30 for 30s on. And we'll tell you guys that. We're going to start at number 5 this week, make our way to number 1, and then we'll go back to number 6. So I'm going to start. My first one at number 5, I got to give Mark's wife, Carly, credit for this. Jeremy Lin. Jeremy Lin was one of those where did this guy come from stories. He wasn't a Yao Ming who made his way to the NBA for being 6'7", 7'6", excuse me.
I was going to say, a little short.
Jeremy Lin came out of Harvard University. He was the only Asian American trying to make the league at the time. And the Knicks were looking – the Knicks had a really bad point guard situation. We had Landry Fields, Steve Novak. We didn't have point guards per se. Jeremy Lin, we get this guy off waivers. We sign him to a 10-day contract. Puts on an absolute show. 30 points, 10 straight games, hits a game-winning shot versus Toronto, and New York was captured by Linsanity. I have never seen, ever, New York get taken over by something so quickly. I bought a Jeremy Lin jersey. Because I'm going to be honest with you, we don't see a lot of Asian Americans in the NBA. It's just what it is. And it's a sad reality, but if you as I mentioned last week, basketball is really starting to globalize itself. And it's stories like Jeremy Lin that inspire other guys. And I think Jeremy Lin is just the perfect example of if you could play, you could play. It doesn't matter what you look like. So that's who I have for number 5. Number 4, the Spurs dynasty. Ever since '99, the Spurs have been building this. Ever since they took Tim Duncan, then they got Manu, and then they got Tony Parker. That was the three-headed monster. And as Mark could praise them here. With Popovich, they are probably the most well-respected group of guys in the NBA. No?
Yeah, definitely. As an organization, 100%.
Yeah. So this dynasty won countless championships. Basically, they formed Greg Popovich into the Hall of Fame coach he is today. And Greg Popovich asked why he wanted to wait for Tim Duncan. He calls him Timmy, to get eligible for the Hall of Fame, is because Greg said, I wouldn't be here without him, so let's be inducted together. And I think that's going to be one of the – I'm like getting chills thinking about it. Like Popovich and Duncan for, kids growing up in the 2000s, that was like our, the coaching player duo that you look up to, per se,
Mm-hmm.
Number 3, the 2007 Patriots / basically the entire dynasty that Bill and Brady have made. I always make this comparison. The Spurs are the Patriots of the NBA. They're never going to have a bad season when you're getting coached by Bill Belichick. And Mark could agree with me here. The Patriots are just one of those teams that you're always going to see in the playoffs because of Bill. Bill Belichick, I have never seen a win in the Super Bowl before where you could literally give the coach the MVP award and you don't even have to be a broadcaster. It was so obvious last year that Bill Belichick just outsmarted the Rams in what was honestly one of the most boring Super Bowls of all time, right?
Yeah, we talk about that game more than anything on this show because it was so disgusting to watch, but it was Belichick at his finest.
I literally was like poking them with a stick, like do something, do something, do something. So before I go into my 1-2 and my odd man out, Mark, let me hear your 5-4-3.
All right, so starting with number 5, I had Trout Harper. If you guys remembered or you pay attention to prospects in minor league baseball, Trout and Harper came up together and were the duo, the two guys above anybody else in their class that from the minute they came out of high school, everyone was talking about. Bryce Harper, it was the fact that he played in wood bat leagues from through all of college, never was using metal bats and was hitting absolute moonshots. They knew he would be prepared for Major League Baseball for that reason. Harper was actually the bigger name in minor league baseball. Trout was always that second tier guy right behind Harper. Then when they both came on the scene that same season, I believe 2012 it was, somewhere around then, they both came up at the exact same time, weeks apart from each other, mid-season, and lit the world on fire. The two most unanimous and Rookie of the Year votings we've seen in so long in Major League Baseball. The closest thing was probably Bellinger and Aaron Judge recently, but those are just generational talents that just got paid like no player's ever been paid before, and there's a reason for that.
Just one question. Just complete the sentence. Harper's season was blank.
A success.
You are a blank. I'm going to fill in the blank. Idiot.
No. He's going to finish with 35 plus bombs and 115 RBIs. He's top 15 in the league, in the National League in home runs and top 10 in RBIs. His batting average is above his career average. What else did you expect from the guy? It's not his fault that the rest of Major League Baseball's numbers have skyrocketed. He is exactly where you expected him to be, if not more. If you told me he was going to hit 35 bombs and be top 10 in RBIs, you think I'm going to be mad going into the season? He does that for 12 more years with his contract. I'll be ecstatic. It's not his fault. There was no pitching staff and
Did,
no other offense behind the guy.
did you just hear what you said? You said 12 more years. He's not Cal Ripken Jr., Mark.
No,
He's
but
not Iron Man.
no, but Albert Pujols got a contract that was double-digit years. He's still out there raking, and he had the better half of the contract was stellar. Like I don't when there's generational talents that hit free agency at the age of 26, never. They never ever hit free agency. So when there was a guy sitting out there like Bryce Harper, why would you not give him every dollar you had? Like
How
it's
old is Bryce Harper?
26 years old.
He's so young. Wow.
Right? It's
He's
crazy.
so young. Okay. Keep going. Let's hear your other ones.
Number 4, I have the OKC Big Three that they drafted all three of them. I believe it 3 straight years. They go Durant out of Texas, Westbrook out of UCLA, and then Harden out of Arizona State. You're talking about 3 MVP winners that all did it on like team. They were never all on the same team when they won the MVPs. If those are 3 players that if they had stuck together, it's the greatest trio of all time. And the thing is, though, they built that core before big threes were a thing in the NBA. So there weren't players willing to take lesser contracts at that time just to play with 3 superstars. So they all went their separate ways. They were big personalities, and OKC has never won anything for that reason. But just imagine the 3 of those guys had stuck together. They'd be the best team in the league, and they would have so many titles. And you talk about that being a 30 for 30, they would be discussing the Westbrook Durant feuds that went on, then how Harden goes to Houston. You have Harden facing off against Westbrook and Durant in the playoffs. Then fast forward to now, Durant goes to Golden State, and now suddenly Westbrook and Harden are about to be on the same team again now in Houston. So it's just like a crazy, crazy change of events, and that's 100% a great 30 for 30 for the future. And
Totally.
then my number 3, I have the Houston Astros building their core from nothing. That was, if anybody, like if you guys remember the story of Sports Illustrated put on their cover that the Astros would be the 2017 World Series champions in 2013 when they were the worst team in baseball. But the idea was they're literally stacking up their farm system like no team has ever done before. The equivalent of tanking in basketball, that's what they were doing in baseball. That's where George Springer came from. That's where Carlos Correa came from. All these names that we know of today, Alex Bregman, Jordan Alvarez, like these guys all came from the trades that the Astros made, which is why they were a 100-loss team 5 years in a row. Sports Illustrated called it, and it was just crazy when they finally put the pieces together. They came out of nowhere, and they were the best team in baseball for a year straight, and now they're like building a straight dynasty.
All right, so let's hear your number 3 or 2.
2 and 1. Do you want to go first or me?
Yeah. So we just kind of touched on it. My number 2, Antonio Brown. 30 for 30s are all about drama. You could literally make a 2-hour 30 for 30 on Antonio Brown. I don't really have to explain myself. I think you might have put that on your list too. I'm not really sure. But like I said, I don't really need to touch up on this. Antonio Brown, most embarrassing moves I have ever seen a professional athlete makes, and I hope he pays the entire price for it. Number 1, the Yankees Core 4. This Core 4 started in 1996. That's Andy Pettitte, Jorge Posada, Derek Jeter, and Mariano Rivera. 4 of the biggest names in Yankees history. Between them, countless World Series, countless wins, countless memories. If you can ask anyone about any single one of those guys, and they could give you a rundown on what they did. I'm sure Mark could tell you something that Mo did. I'm sure Mark could tell you something that Jeter did. I'm sure Mark could tell you something Pettit did. And I'm sure Mark could tell you something Posada did. These guys are world-class names in baseball. They are some of the most well-respected names in baseball, and I would die for every single one of them. I love them. I also love Joe Torre too. He was a Joe Torre. If there's a five to the core four, it's Joe Torre. Joe Torre was their manager. Joe Torre was the manager that really, in my mind, swung the Yankees from a baseball team to a business. No facial hair, always just looking clean. That's New York Yankees baseball. Odd man out. I don't think he has enough drama to his life to really put this, in a 30 for 30, but he's still the greatest shooter of all time. And he started out as a very underrated player in college, coming out of Davidson, leading a number 8 seeded Davidson, or I think they were the 8 seed. Took him all the way to the Elite Eight. Steph Curry, he's a family guy. He's a class act. He's going to go down as the greatest shooter in NBA history. And yeah, that's my odd man out for the day. I really like this segment, especially today. So Mark, let's hear your 2, 1, and 6.
All right, so at number 2 for me, I have one that's like real close to home. I watched the entire thing happen throughout my life, and it was very, very difficult to watch at times. But the Sixers process that was ridiculed more than anything the sport has ever seen. They tanked for 5 seasons for draft picks. And I mean, I'm as big of a Philly fan as there is. I watched all of those things with the years of Spencer Hawes, of Thaddeus Young, Samuel Dallenberg, like these just terrible names that were leading when we traded for Andrew Bynum. And then all of a sudden, we started to turn these terrible seasons of basketball into draft picks. And the first one that came was, I remember the Michael Carter-Williams, Nerlens Noel draft, those are 2 players. I mean, Michael Carter-Williams won Rookie of the Year with us, but those were 2 players that people thought were going to be a part of our core, and they were transition pieces. They got us to where we are now, but they aren't on the team now. But that first pick that we made that really is the core of the process was Joel Embiid. And I remember the time of the pick, we take him 3rd overall after Wiggins and Jabari Parker, and I was furious. We were supposed to be winless for Wiggins, and if it was Parker, I wanted a top 2 pick. I wanted one of those 2 players. We missed out, and I was like, damn, we're about to get the most injury-prone player in college basketball, Joel Embiid. No experience, didn't start playing until college, and I was scared about it. Misses a full season, and it was the best draft pick this franchise has ever made. We're about to get into the NBA top 10 players. He's hands down top 10 player in the NBA and will be for years to come. Next season we go out, we draft Ben Simmons with the first pick. Now he's a top 15 player in the NBA. And you're talking like free agents want to come here now. LeBron took a meeting with us, even though he chose the Lakers. Kawhi took a meeting with us. These are big names that want to play in Philadelphia because of Ben Simmons, because of Joel Embiid. None of that happens without the process, and that's a 30 for 30 that's just waiting to happen. My number 1 is – you got something, Graham?
I'm saying you're number 1.
My number 1 is hands down Cavs-Warriors rivalry. LeBron, Kyrie, Kevin Love versus Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green. Like, how many years straight? Was it 4 years straight they play in the finals?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the year that everyone remembers the most is the LeBron block on Iguodala. Cavs win in 7. That was the craziest game I've ever watched. And even though I'm not even a fan of either team, I actually started because of that rivalry. I became like a huge Cavs guy. I loved watching those games. I loved watching LeBron in his prime. I just think that's something that like basketball will forever like remember is that run, and it reminds you of Lakers, Celtics, Bird versus Magic. Curry versus LeBron was like that for 4 straight years. It's just the Warriors really dominated it. Besides the LeBron block year.
It took a miracle. It took a miracle for LeBron to win that title. Forget the rivalry. That 7-game series, you could make a 30 for 30 on.
Yeah, that's true.
They were down what 3-1.
Yeah,
You could literally make a 30 for 30 on that game 7 itself. Like Steph Curry's forgetting how to shoot in the last 4 minutes.
his behind the back pass goes out of bounds. Curry was awful in that game, and especially down the stretch. Curry is not a clutch player. You're the first one to say it.
Yeah, Curry is not clutch. Mark, odd man out.
Odd man out. Another one that hits close to home. Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly came from Oregon. He was like the first one to run read options and a really high-paced, up-tempo offense. Comes to the NFL, I was so excited when the Eagles got him. Nick Foles, don't forget, was the quarterback for the Eagles at the time. Mike Vick had just transitioned out of there. They were kind of in a quarterback controversy between the two of them. And I remember that first Monday night game against the Redskins, Vick lights it up. Like the NFL had never seen an offense like this. Read options.
Like six touchdowns in the first half.
A bomb to Deshaun Jackson. Like it was the NFL taken by storm by Chip Kelly. And all of that went away by midseason. They completely figured out his style, his read option. All the defenses were stopping it with ease. And Chip Kelly gets bounced out of town, goes to the Niners, bounced out of there, did absolutely nothing. Now he's at UCLA, and he's on the verge of getting fired any day now. He can't win a game with them. For a second, it looked like Chip Kelly had the future of the NFL in his pocket, and he's probably going to go back to coaching Pee Wee football at this point. Like, he's just falling apart.
Chip Kelly is in the situation, or excuse me, Chip Kelly was in the situation that I think Oklahoma coach Lincoln Riley is in. But Lincoln Riley is making the correct decision and staying where he is because that's what works there. You know, Lincoln Riley's a great coach, but that doesn't mean he's going to be a great coach in the NFL. That's why I'm worried about Cliff Kingsbury, man. I'm going to be honest with you. If like this Cliff Kingsbury situation just scares me. I don't think you can make a college to NFL transition unless you're Nick Saban. And it didn't even work. It didn't really even work out for Nick Saban.
No,
you know, you can't. It's just one of those things that you can't. It's a lot harder to make that switch from college to NFL coaching, whereas in basketball, it's very, very easy to make that transition.
I completely agree. I just think like a lot more coaches need to realize that and stick with where they are. And I got news for you: college football doesn't pay too bad. A lot of these coaches are making more money than NFL coaches are. Just stay where you're at. I really don't get it. It's a better lifestyle, honestly.
All right. So there you go. That was a very interesting, very, very interesting topic to do a Odd Man Out segment. If you have any ideas for our Odd Man Out segments, comment on our Instagrams, comment on the highlights. Let us know. We want all the feedback we possibly can. Respond to any polls you see on the page. So before we get to my picks and Mark and Graham of the day, ESPN just released the top 10 basketball players in the NBA. Mark and I decided to take that list and just rearrange it a little bit. So I don't have the original list on me, but every player we named here was on the original list. The top 3 players were LeBron at 3, Kawhi at 2, and Giannis at 1, just so people have an idea. But Mark, if you want to share your list first, or I can share my list first, either way.
All right, I'll start off. Mine was a little bit different than what NBA.com had. Like we said, we stuck with the same 10 players, but I start with number 10. I thought NBA.com had Jokic way too high. I have him at 10. He's he's a great player, but he's kind of out of shape, in my opinion. I just think he's a great shooter for his size, but I don't really see his I think he's maybe got one more year at playing at the level that he's been playing at, and then he'll start to fall off because he's out of shape. He really is. Number 9, I'm going Dame Lillard. There's nobody as clutch as him in basketball, except for maybe Kawhi. But he's ridiculous late in games. I just wish that the Trailblazers had enough around them to finally give him a winning season, like a true chance at winning it all. It was almost their year this past year, but nobody was beating the Wolves to get to the finals. Number 8, I'm going with my guy Joel Embiid. No doubt he's a top 10 player, and no doubt he's the best center in basketball. That's why it pissed me off that Jokic was ahead of him in the NBA rankings, because there's no way in any world that Jokic is a better player than Embiid. I will not listen to that for a second. Curry is my number 7.
Okay.
Greatest shooter of all time is enough to put him there, but he just doesn't have enough of an all-around game to be top 5 anymore. He's
6? Oh, my bad.
Number 6, Paul George. Great defender, great all-around player. 5, Anthony Davis. 4, LeBron. 3, I'm going Harden. The numbers he puts up nobody competes with his scoring numbers year to year. Giannis I have at number 2, and I'm putting Kawhi number 1. After what Kawhi did last year in the playoffs, he's the best player in basketball, and no questions asked.
Surprisingly, me and Mark have a very similar list, and we didn't tell each other what we did. So number 10, Nikola Jokic, same reason as Mark. Great player, just shouldn't be ranked that high. Joel Embiid. I put Joel at 9 because he's a big guy, he's a good player. He just doesn't. If you look at all the other players, he's a lot less dimensional than the other players on this list. 8, Damian Lillard, Mr. Clutch. It speaks for itself. Number 7, Steph Curry. I think he's a great shooter, and I think he's a great dribbler. I think he's a great teammate, but his inability to hit in the clutch is what's really holding me back from keeping him farther down. Number 6, Anthony Davis. The guy's a complete mismatch. He is doing point guard things as a 7-footer, completely unstoppable. I think we can all agree on that. Number 5, James Harden. Doesn't play defense. He can only shoot and he can only dribble. He's clutch, but I don't think there's enough to James Harden's game for him to break that top 4. Number 4, Paul George. Defensively, amazing. Offensively, amazing. Leadership, amazing. Paul George, I think, as I was just thinking how much they contribute to their team, how one-dimensional they are. Paul George is one of the most all-around players. He can win a scoring title and then also win Defensive Player of the Year the same year. And that's just very rare to find in a player. Number 3, LeBron James. It's LeBron James. Number 2 is Giannis, and number 1 is Kawhi. I feel like those are really set in stone because you were really able to see how much contribution they had. Kawhi brought a team that hasn't never been to the finals, brought them to the finals, then 1-6. I thought Kawhi owned that playoffs. And you know what? I'm going to ask you, my heart broke for the Sixers a little bit.
Don't talk about it.
My heart really broke for the Sixers because I remember being on the phone with my dad and he goes, it's bouncing, it's in. And he was going crazy. And I just remember, I was like, dang, feel it, they were a bounce away. They were a bounce away. It's just Philadelphia luck, All right. So those are our top 10. I'm going to pick the games for this week. We'll do that, and then we'll hit our Mark and Graham of the day. So, Mark, if you want to rattle off these games, I will give you what the scores will be. Unfortunately, we missed the Packers Eagles game last night, but I did pick I did pick the Eagles to win on my Pick'em League, so don't worry. But, Mark, go for it.
All right, so we're going to start off with the first game on Sunday, Titans at Falcons.
God, I think the Falcons are going to win 24-10.
Would you believe it if I told you Matt Ryan has the most interceptions in football right now?
Well, I think so. I think something's going to change on Sunday. Falcons, 24-10.
6 interceptions. Crazy. My clown of the day, Baker Mayfield at the Ravens. The Ravens have just been lighting it up. They're 2-1.
Browns, 24-21. I say this goes down to the wire. I'm feeling a field goal as time expires for this game.
Big upset there. Patriots, Bills.
Patriots, Bills. Call me crazy, Bills. 21, no, 35-28 Bills.
All right. Chiefs at Lions.
Chiefs. Chiefs 28-14.
Panthers at Texans.
Ooh, this is gonna be a tight one, but let's go Panthers 17-10.
Raiders at Colts.
Oh, Colts 21-10.
Chargers at Dolphins.
Oh, this is gonna be a blowout. Melvin Gordon's gonna come back probably because Justin Jackson's hurt.
Give him a week. Melvin will be back next week.
Dolphins are so lackluster. It's so embarrassing. 28-3 Chargers.
Redskins at Giants. Your boy Daniel Jones trying to go 2-0.
Oh, let's get it. Giants 17-14.
Seahawks at Cardinals.
Wait, I want you to quote me on that. Giants 17-14. All right, Seahawks Cardinals.
Yeah.
This really can go either way in my mind, considering how much Russell Wilson actually has to do now for them to win. I think this one's going to be close. 28-21 Seahawks.
Buccaneers at Rams. Buccaneers coming off a heartbreaking loss to the Giants.
Rams 28-10.
Vikings at Bears. That's going to be a really good divisional rivalry right there.
That's going to be an offensive shootout or a defensive stand. I'll tell you what, man, the score is going to be either 42-35 Rams, or it's going to be
Vikings Bears.
Did I say? Excuse me. It's going to be 42-35 Bears, or it's going to be like 20-17 Minnesota.
So what's your pick?
I don't know. This is really hard. I hope Matt Nagy knows what he's doing. I'm going to go 38. No, I'm going to go 32-28 Bears.
Jaguars at Broncos. All the Jalen Ramsey drama in the midst of it all. They got a game at Denver.
This is interesting because the Broncos suck, but Jacksonville also is very unpredictable. I'm going to say the Bear. I'm going to say my boy Vance Joseph gets his first win for the Broncos this year because of all the drama. I'm going to say Broncos 21. No, Broncos 28, Jags 27.
You don't believe in the boy Uncle Rico?
No.
Minshew? I kind of like that guy. Honestly, we got to have a segment on him next week.
Gardner Minshew has become a meme in the NFL.
He really has, and he's pretty good. Like
he's
a
meme.
Test. He's really surprisingly electric. All right, Sunday Night Football: Cowboys at Teddy Bridgewater's Saints.
Something about Teddy Bridgewater, man. I think he's still an NFL quarterback. I think he's Drew Brees' successor. I think he's going to have a bounce back in his career. And I hate the Cowboys. Saints, 24-10.
The Cowboys actually favored by 2.5 points on the road in that game. All right, Monday Night Football. This is just a terrible Monday night game. You would have thought it would be good going into the season, but Bengals at Mason Rudolph Steelers.
Oh, my God. Do I even care about this game?
Flip a coin.
All right. Flip a coin? Okay. Oh, wait, I don't have a coin.
That's Siri.
Yo, Siri. Who's going to win, Bears or who's playing? No, I'm not asking Siri. You know what? I really want the Steelers to get a win. I really do. I really think they deserve it. Let's go Steelers 21-20.
Close game. All right, that wraps it up. That'll wrap up week 4 of the NFL season. I'll be back next week with my picks, and we're going to try next week. We keep running out of time to do it, but Next week, we're going to try to recap Graham's picks and go through the games that he picked correctly and the ones he didn't get right.
Okay, we are going to finish with our marking Graham of the day. My Graham of the day goes out to the man that the Eagles secondary could not stop last night, Mr. Devontae Adams. 10 receptions, 180 yards, and a touchdown, and a whole lot of fantasy points.
Yeah, he did. He didn't have a touchdown though.
He didn't have a touchdown?
10 for 1.
Well, I don't get it. How you can have 180 yards receiving but not a touchdown?
Because the Eagles defense stopped them on the final possession of the game for the victory, and that's why my mark of the day is Nigel Bradham. The game-clinching interception in the red zone, fresh off of Avonte Maddox's injury that stopped the game for like a good 20 minutes. Bradham clutch interception. That could have been a season-saving interception.
Whose injury?
Avonte Maddox, one of the cornerbacks for the Eagles. But that play was just huge. Lockdown. It seems like the Eagles are always in that situation late in games where they need to get a stop in the red zone. We all remember the Julio Jones play the Super Bowl year where they stopped him in that final drive. It was similar to that last night. And we get back to 2-2. We stay alive, move on to next week where we should have an easy victory. Knock on some wood while I say that. But next week, we get to play the Jets, I believe. So that should be an easy win.
That should be an easy win. All right, well, this has been another amazing week of the Mark and Graham podcast, and I'm definitely looking forward to next week. As we get closer to episode 10, we're going to have something special for episode 10, but we're not going to tell you yet. Episode 10 will be in 2 weeks, and it is going to be a little bit longer and a little bit more special because it's the 10th show of Mark and Graham. So, like I said before, follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter, follow us on YouTube, at Mark and Graham Podcast on YouTube, at Mark and Graham _podcast on Twitter and on Instagram. We will be posting polls, polls, highlights, anything. We accept every submission you guys give to us. We want to know what you want to hear. We just love sports. We're just we're just two guys trying to make a career out of this. So we need your help. So, like I said, we always take suggestions. Mark, you want to say anything else?
No, just thanks for listening to another great episode. Like Graham said, the 10th episode, we're going to have some guests on for you guys. We got big plans for that, so make sure to stay tuned. And as the NFL season continues to roll around, we're going to have constant updates, giving picks every single week. We will not miss any, and we're ready to go. This Mark and Graham podcast is just getting going.
All right, guys. We will see you next week for another crazy episode of the Mark and Graham podcast. Check out the page later for highlights. Let us know what you think. We'll see you guys next week.